Hello and welcome back to India on 99.94, your home of Indian cricket content. I'm Nikesh Rugani, BBC commentator and your host, and my co-host as always alongside me, Sarah Waris of Wisden. Sarah, always plenty to talk about in Indian cricket, and today we're going to have a little look back at the, I'd call it a bit of a waste of time tour of New Zealand. How would you describe it?
I I didn't see a lot of the series, to be very honest. Just probably getting over the T20 World Cup or just too much of cricket, and yeah, waste of the series, as you would say. Too much rain and uh, a few positives, but overall not a lot of answers.
Yeah, and a lot of rain as well. So we'll discuss
Yeah.
that. We'll have a look at some of the combinations that were tried whenever they did get an opportunity in this series, both the T20s and especially the ODIs. We've talked about the T20s enough, I think, as of now. And we'll talk about the batting lineup, the opening combination, and we'll also discuss some other business towards the end of the episode. Jadeja, Ravi Jadeja, and his entry into politics, is it? Him or his wife? It's quite confusing. You wouldn't know it's his wife reading all
Yeah.
his social media posts. So we'll have a little discussion into that as well towards the end of the episode. But let's kick off with the ODI series. Third ODI, today as we speak. But, a long time ago in terms of the time difference between here in the UK and even in India and New Zealand. Disappointing for India with the bat. Look, it was rained off in the end. India got away with one there, 219 all out. Only Shreyas Iyer and Washington Sundar really showed up with the bat, and Sundar doing a bit of a rescue job down at the back end of the innings. Shikhar Dhawan, the skipper in this series, once again 28 from 45, striking at 62. I mean, even by his standards, that's low. Shubman Gill didn't do much better. Rishabh Pant was in at number 4, didn't do great. Sky is the limit in T20s, doesn't seem to be the case in ODIs. The batting, albeit, without some of the big guns playing in this series, looks very lightweight at the moment, doesn't it? You don't look at that lineup and think,
Mm.
I can rely on that top 6 to get me a good score every time.
Where is Sanju Samson? Where is Sanju Samson? He played the first match and then was dropped for the remainder of the series. What does he need to do? Like right now is just getting absurd and absurd because he has the numbers. He averages 66 this year, has a strike rate of 104. Where is Sanju Samson? It's bizarre, all these selections, and the World Cup is less than 12 months away, and you have to now start getting your 15 together, and instead they're just messing up formats. This player again being rested, this player not being there. Where was Siraj's best format, I think, is ODI. So why wasn't he picked in the team? Where is Shami? Shami doesn't need rest in ODIs. I think he's a certain starter in ODI. So where is he? And uh, why do they need rest? They've hardly played. Shami just returned after a long time, played in the T20 World Cup, and it's just all these absurd selections again. The Bangladesh series, then it doesn't have Gill in the 11, in the squad, which is what are they doing? They're just committing the same mistakes again and again. And even with the new selection committee coming in, the Bangladesh squad was picked by the former committee. But I don't see any, like, the BCCI is the BCCI, it remains the
Who
same.
picked that
So
squad, though? I'm
just,
interested to
yeah.
know, because the former committee was
Yeah.
sacked, right? When you get sacked, you don't then come in the next week and do your job again, do you? I don't think
Yeah.
it was. I mean, look, they may have said, look, this decision was made before they were sacked, whatever. I think it's basically Rohit Sharma,
Mm,
Rahul Dravid, and maybe with a bit of input
yeah.
from somebody else, maybe even the vice captain, KL Rahul, got involved, and they just came up with this Bangladesh squad as well, which is interesting, as you say, and they don't seem to have any clear plan. And this is a concern because they might think, okay,
Mm,
there's 1 year, the one whole year left until that 50 over World Cup, but a year's not a long time. unless they schedule in lots of these ODI series, in the little gaps that they have, and there are very few gaps that they do have between now and next November or October, I think it starts. So there's not a lot of time. There's not a lot of one-day internationals. You might think, oh yeah, we've got 15 ODIs or whatever. That's not a lot to get your side together to win a World Cup when you are so unsure about what your 11 should be. And maybe they are sure. Maybe they've decided that we're going to go old school and we're just going to go with the Rohits, the KLs, the usuals. Maybe that's their plan all along, and they're just giving these guys a rest until the run up to the World Cup. We just don't know. As always, there's little communication between the BCCI and the media, and there's just a lack of transparency. So we don't know. Shikhar Dhawan looks a shoo-in to me. Otherwise, why would he even be there? Why would he be in the mix? Why would he be getting international caps now if he's not going to play? Yeah. So he's going to play. That's a massive concern. His strike rate at the top of the order has been terrible of late. Yeah, all these stats go around, don't they, on social media, where Shikhar Dhawan in among the top run scorers for... Is he the top run scorer for India in ODIs in the last 12 months? He's up there, isn't he?
Yep.
But that's because he's played more matches than anyone else. Because there's so many of these series where no one wants to play, and he's shoehorned in as the captain, the makeshift captain. And then even when all the big guns are back, he's still a part of their plan, so he plays in those as well. So he's played basically every match. His average isn't great. His strike rate's in the low 70s. All right, he's moved it up to the mid 70s then of late.
Which is the worst, which is still the worst by any India batter since 2008. Obviously, there are some filters and all, but the worst by any batter since 2008, when ODI cricket was much different than what we know it now. So, yeah, Dhawan, there is Gill, and if Gill has been doing so well in this series, like even in overcast conditions, he did so well. And he's not part of the Bangladesh series. So, but with how he's going, for me, Gill is a must in the team in the 11 for the World Cup next year. Like currently, with how it's going, especially with the conditions being in India. And what's even more absurd is I can see the selection committee or the BCCI or the management, whatever, making the same mistakes which they made in the T20 World Cup this year. Going back on experience, omitting youngsters, omitting form, overlooking all these things, and just being like, experience. KL Rahul is experienced, so we are going to stick with him. Shikhar Dhawan is experienced, we are going to stick with him. No matter that he's, well in his late 30s, or that so many other reasons, his reflexes are obviously not the same, and he's just slowed down. Even his running between the wickets is not that great. In the first ODI, India made 306 and they lost, and a lot was said about the bowling, etc., etc. But it's the openers up front, led by Shikhar Dhawan, who they were 68 in 15 overs with 45-meter boundaries, which is absurd, because it's you have to start off well, and it's the power play again. I spoke about how the power play will cost India the semi-final. It's just a power play how you begin, and Dhawan right now, and Rohit Sharma, Rohit Sharma's reflexes are also on the wane, so it's both of them. I'm just scared, how it's going to pan out, because I can see the same mistakes being repeated.
Yep, massive concern then at the top of the order. And in the middle order, yeah, you're right. Where is Sanju Samson? What does he have to do? Is Rishabh Pant the answer? He's a much better ODI player, I feel, than a T20 player. Certainly the stats would show that. We saw him, the way he won England, won a game in England basically on his own, batting in that middle order with Hardik there as a partner. But that 100 he scored, I think it was at Old Trafford to win that ODI there, brilliant innings to finish that game off. And that's what he can do. And he's done that in the longest form of the game, in Test cricket, where he's batted for long periods of time. He can dig in. He'll occasionally run down the wicket and play a bit of a slog, and sometimes it'll look quite ugly, but most of the time it'll come off. And he seems to be able to sort of know when to do that. And in T20s, he feels almost the pressure and the fact that he's such a brilliant stroke maker that he's almost expected to do it every ball, which is not always, it shouldn't be the case, but he seems to take on too much burden, and he looks very ugly when he's trying to slog in T20s, whereas in ODIs and in Test cricket, he seems to pick the right moments of when to do it. And I think it suits him more, despite the fact that he's one of the most destructive batters that India's probably ever produced. I think the longer forms suit him better. And it's like Virender Sehwag.
Yeah.
You look at Virender Sehwag's ODI average, and look, T20 internationals, he wasn't around for a lot of them, so you can't really judge him on that. But you look at his ODI record, and his average is like 30, 31, 32, something like that. His strike rate is very good, over 100. But the average isn't great when you consider all the great players that were around him. But then you look at Test cricket, Virender Sehwag, average of just touching 50, and he played over 100 Test matches. He got 2 triple centuries, nearly got 3. He got 293 as well in there. So it's interesting that these type of players, the Rishabh Pants and the Virender Sehwag, almost better suited to the longer forms of the game. So I think ODIs suit him a lot better than T20s. But then is it a straight toss-up between him and Sanju Samson, or can you fit both of them in?
There's Surya Kumar Yadav also. It's very tricky question because there's Surya Kumar Yadav also, and I have reservations about him playing in the 11. It's almost like, the selectors are like, okay, wow, you've done well in T20Is, come, you'll automatically do well in ODIs also, and that's not been the case. Somehow he doesn't have the he doesn't know how to play according to an ODI. Like, he doesn't know how to frame it. I'm not getting the word. But just accelerate, and he looks to go after the bowling right from ball one. This happened in the first ODI when the third ball that he faced, the first ball was a 4, and the third ball that he faced was a short ball. There were slips in place, and he just punched one, and it was caught in the slips. And so it doesn't seem that he has the patience maybe to play ODIs. I know he is a star player, and that can change overnight. But it's just that with so many other informed players around, there is KL Rahul also. So if KL Rahul comes in, and there is Samson also, so how does he fit into the team? And it's all very confusing right now. Even Sky, his list average is 36, which is not the best. His innings construction, that's the word I was looking for. It's not that, not the best. Like, someone like Shreyas Iyer knows that, he starts off slow, and then he knows how to go and get the big runs. And yeah, you were talking about Samson,
Sky?
Pant,
I mean, we'll come to Samson and Pant as well, but do you have Sky then in the ODI side? The reason I'm saying that I reckon he should be in the side is he offers you something different, and okay, you need to pace those innings, but then you look at teams like England, even in ODI cricket, over the last 5-7 years, they're scoring like 400s and 450s and stuff. Not always, but when it's a good track, when the conditions allow it, and even if they're not doing that, they're consistently getting the 350s rather than the 300s. And you need that extra bit of firepower in that lineup. And yeah, you've got Rishabh Pant, but he does start off a little bit slower in ODIs, and understandably that's his game, and it's worked well for him. But then, do you have Sky as a finisher? Because do you have a real sort of ODI finisher in the lineup if you haven't got somebody like that down there, and you're not selecting the likes of your Tawatias or some of the other guys that we spoke about as well? Do you just put him down at 6-7 then maybe? And have him as a finisher?
But then where does he play? Like, Pandya is going to be there. Iyer at 4 is a lock-in for me. The only place open is at 5. I think Pandya is going to be there at 6. Jadeja at 7. Sundar at 8 with all that he's done. And at 5, so I think the only place open for him, there is one place open at 5, and that'll be a toss-up between KL Rahul, Pant, Samson, Surya Kumar. So sometimes, I think the rich talent pool, which everyone keeps talking about, sometimes proves to be a curse for India and the management and the selectors, because they're like so much to do, and we don't know what to do. Sometimes it looks like, uh, there are no options for them, or the people they back, they don't have answers to it. So who plays? You are talking about Pant, Samson, Rahul. For me, his strongest format is ODI. So there are so many options, and I'm not going into the Hudas and the other people who are around the scene also. Uh, so yeah, it's a blessing as well a curse for the Indian team, you can
It
say.
is indeed. Right, we'll focus on the bowling in just a second after this short break.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So we've done the batting. I'm almost sick of talking about potential combinations. You're right. There are too many players to choose from, which is a problem. Too many talented players to choose from, and they always seem to be backing the wrong ones. It feels like we've talked about this to death, doesn't it? Through T20s and ODIs, and I mean, look, I can't wait for India to get back into Test action, because we've not really had a chance since we started this podcast. We've not had a chance to discuss Test cricket, which is, I feel safe with Test cricket. It's pleasant. It's over 5 days. You can take your time talking about it. You can build up nicely to a series. It's not rushed, and they don't shoehorn in a series in a little gap they have in the calendar. It's always pre-planned, and I can't wait for some Test cricket. But while we're here, we must talk about the ODI bowling as well. And I think it's weird that they didn't play Umran Malik in T20 cricket, and then now they're putting him in ODIs. Are they scared that he might leak too many runs, and that ODI cricket might afford him that little bit more of sort of, bedding in time, I suppose, into getting into his straps in international cricket, because batters won't be coming as hard? Is it too cautious an approach to stick him in a meaningless ODI series? Are you going to learn anything from that as well?
You definitely aren't. And that's why I'm like, Siraj should have been in the ODI team, because Siraj over even Arshdeep, I'd say, in the pecking order. Arshdeep and Umran Malik, obviously, in the pecking order. So Siraj was in the T20I team. He's fine in T20I. He's not the greatest, not the most lethal, can be expensive on his day, but the ODIs is better suited for him. So it's just, I think, a case of, mixing up formats. Maybe the selectors don't know which format is, better suited for someone, and because we are away from the whole scene, so to say, we have an outer perspective of things. Sometimes when you're too embroiled in everything, you can't, get a clear picture. Maybe that's what's happening. And yeah, you are right about Umran Malik, though he did do well, like, in his chances. To be fair to him, in the first spell, especially in the first ODI, he was very impressive. He was bowling quick in the 150s consistently. And even Arshdeep, like, they made their debuts together in the match. And Arshdeep later said that because batters are facing someone like Umran Malik at 155, they are like, okay, someone bowling at 135 will be easier for them. And, that's how he manages to choke them. So, I think that combination can work well going forward. But if you are seeing things in the next 1 year, I personally, I have spoken a lot about, having Umran Malik in the team, etc., etc. We have spoken a lot. But yeah, you're right. He's better in the T20I format for now, I would say, rather than in the ODIs, when there is already Siraj and Shami around. And I don't think India is going to go in with more than 3 or 4. Deepak Chahar is also there also. So I don't see India, like, in India, they are not going to play 3 seamers plus Pandya in the 11. So yeah, just give the ones who are likely to play a longer rope. I don't know why they're not doing that.
And it also begs the interesting question about multi-format cricketers and can you
Yeah.
be a 3-format player these days, and the amount of cricket that there is, because it just seems to never stop. And not only are you putting your body through all that strain, it takes mental strain for a lot of the players. They're away from their families, and that is a big problem as well. You know, they're away for like 10 months a year sometimes, and that can have incredible, negative impact on your mental health as well. So it's the mental health, the physical health. If you want these players to play for such a long period of time, you can't expect them to play all 3 formats. They might be best suited to one or the other anyway, or maybe 2 out of the 3. So with an Umran Malik, do you then just for now say, look, we want you in the T20I team, we'll try and build towards that 2024 World Cup, don't worry about 2023. He'll be there or thereabouts. If there's injuries and stuff like that, he'll still be in the mix in terms of being talked about for potential selection, but not necessarily in your best 5 seamers that you're going to select to go to that World Cup. And then do you try him in Test cricket? Particularly, I mean, I'd say even at home, because what are you going to play? Maybe 2 seamers for India at home and then 3 spinners, something like that, depending on the...
Bumrah anyway might not play unless it's Australia.
Exactly.
So.
But then on dead wickets, if they are spinning wickets, that extra pace, teach him to reverse swing it, all those kind of things, that pace will come in use, because there's no point in having a 135 bowler who's not going to be swinging it after the first spell anyway. You probably need that extra pace and short deliveries and Yorkers and all that kind of stuff just to mix it up. So you need that enforcer in the lineup. So even in home Test matches, you'd probably say he'd be more suited to that format and more useful for India in Test cricket and T20s at the moment than in ODIs. And it just seems that nobody's got a clue about how to plan for these things. And we're sitting here talking about it. We've not played international cricket. We've not coached. We've not got coaching badges. But it seems like common sense.
I've never played cricket. I've
Well, there
never
you go.
played cricket.
So, but it just seems like common sense that there's too much cricket. Not everyone can play all 3 formats. Make a plan. Who's going to play which format? And who are your sort of, key players in each format? And, let them play that one and the second strongest suit. And whatever their third suit is, just say, look, we've got other players to come in and do the job, and make a plan with those other players. Because it's getting too much. It's getting ridiculous. And it's part of the problem, isn't it, that we look at the way India play ODI cricket, they play T20 cricket. And there was all this talk about, let's go out there and express ourselves and, attack the power play and play with this, new tempo. The tempo was the key word, wasn't it? We were going to play with a different tempo in the power play. That's not happened. And that is partly due to the fact that Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul are your Test openers, potentially your ODI openers as well, or certainly both in the ODI side. And then they're also playing T20 cricket. It's difficult for a start to switch between formats like that. And also, it's just too much. It's fatigue, right? You're heading into a World Cup and you're knackered. You can't do that. You need players who are a little bit fresh. Yeah, they're in the routine of playing, but they've got to be fresh, haven't they? And you're not going to have fresh players if you keep doing this. Hardik Pandya is a good example. He should never play. I think he would be a great Test player if he was fit, but I don't think he should ever play Test cricket now, because he's too valuable in white ball cricket for India. And if they want to win ICC tournaments in white ball cricket, he needs to be playing in them, and he's more valuable there than he is in the Test side, even though I think India have been crying out for somebody like him since Kapil Dev retired, probably, a fast bowling all-rounder. But he's more valuable in white ball cricket, so he shouldn't play Test cricket, and that's probably what's going to happen. So that's a good decision, but that's only based on the fact that he's had really, really serious back injury, which could have ended his career. If it wasn't for that, they probably would have him in the Test side, wouldn't they? It's just no common sense.
Also, all your points were very on point, and another point which I had was I was just listening to Rishabh Pant's interview today to Harsha Bhogle, and he was talking about downtime. So Harsha Bhogle asked him, "What do you do in your downtime?" And he's like, "I don't have any downtime." And if you look at it, last year he played 71 days of international cricket, including tests and everything, the most by any Indian. So the highest was 80 by Mohammad Rizwan. And 71 is a lot, especially considering that he all the travel and plus the IPL, of course. He's the captain in Delhi Capitals. This year he's already played the most by most number of days by any Indian across all formats. And yeah, you can say that he's young, 24, 25, he can handle it, but that's, already burdening him with all three formats, and he clearly is struggling in T20Is. You're not giving him a longer rope also. The workload management is not being applied to someone like Rishabh Pant here, because the KL Rahuls and the Pandyas and everyone else is being rested. But I don't remember a series where Pant was rested. Maybe there was this one-off series which he was rested for one series, but I don't really remember which. So even someone like Pant, you can say, yeah, he's a batter and all that. He doesn't have that physical, he doesn't require that physical energy that much or whatever. But it's the mental strain, and with someone like him who's already too young, you're already risking him by pressurizing him and tiring him out. And some of the shots which he has played in this ODI series actually seem very tired shots, like, just lacks that extra time. And it's not because he doesn't have the skill, he's a once in a generational player. It's just that the fatigue is setting in on him also. So it's like the Kohlis and Rohits are being rested, but on the other hand, this why isn't the same being given to someone like Rishabh Pant also? So yeah, that's another, like, randomly just came on top of my head, and that's another point that
it's a great point, because you look at somebody like Sachin Tendulkar, who in 1989 started playing Test cricket at the age of 16, was playing first-class cricket a year before, was playing a lot of cricket in his junior days, he's playing every day, but that's different, right? When you're a kid and you're developing. But the fact that he went from 16 and then in 1989, he played his last international game, his last test match in November of 2013. So nearly another, nearly into 2014. And he was 40 years old then. And would he be able to do that now? Because he played all formats, because I don't really consider T20 internationals to have been a format for his career. I know it was for a few years, but he was sort of in his late 30s by then. He played one match. So he basically played for the entirety of his career, all the cricket that was available to him. But there were times where India would have 2 months off or 3 months off. And that was crucial, not just to him, but all the players of that generation, but especially to somebody like him, who was the best player in the world, arguably one of the greatest players to have ever picked up a bat in the history of the game, if not the greatest. And he just wouldn't be able to survive these days if he was asked to play, even if he was just asked to play Test cricket and ODIs. Just the amount of travel. Obviously now you got the IPL as well. It would just be too much, and he'd probably retire at 32 or 33 and be done with it. And yeah, he would have made a lot of money, probably would have had, great records. But, even though Sachin probably went on 18 months too long in his career, but that's his right, he earned the right to do that through what he did in previous years. But we may lose the next Sachin Tendulkar because of this. I mean, Rishabh Pant was not being talked in those terms, but being talked in sort of MS Dhoni terms. Certainly, he could have been that player, but it hasn't quite transpired across formats because too much is being asked of him. He's playing too much cricket, and these guys need a rest. They're human beings. Their bodies ache, their brains ache, they suffer depression as well. It's a ticking time bomb. And you've seen what it's done to players, not only from India, but, in India, it's probably still a bit of a taboo subject to talk about mental health. even though there's been a little bit more talk recently. If you look at England players, Ben Stokes, is a great example. Sat out 6-8 months or whatever it was to focus on his mental health, and he had to do that because he was playing every format. He was playing IPL, and it was too much. It was too much just being on the road for that amount of time, being confined, particularly when it was the pandemic, in bubbles, in hotel rooms, all that stuff. It can be a horrible thing to have to go through, even though they're privileged to play international cricket and earning all that money. Doesn't necessarily bring them happiness. So you're right.
Yeah, and that's why I keep talking about using the word continuity in so many of my podcasts. If you have one squad, you ensure continuity. Now what's happening is VBS Lakshman is the head of New Zealand. He's the coach in New Zealand. Obviously Rahul Dravid has earned the right to take a rest, but I'm not talking about that. Because of so much cricket being played, there are times when Dravid is with the team in one series and Lakshman is the coach in another series. So someone like a Gill, who is the under Lakshman in one series, he is now going to play under Dravid in another series. And obviously, no matter how much Dravid tells Lakshman that coach this way or do this and do that, Lakshman will have his own views, and that will only go on and mess up someone like a Shubman Gill or Umran Malik or whoever else there is. Should I play that way? Should I not play that way? I am in the squad for Bangladesh. I am not in the squad for New Zealand. It's just going to, create self-doubt and make the person question himself more, and which is already going to add to the stress which is created by the IPL and so much of cricket and the scrutiny which is played. Because with so much competition, it's like one bad match, I'm not even talking about one bad series, and you're out. Sanju Samson hasn't really done anything to be dropped, and yet he's not in the team. So it's so much more. And yeah, sometimes I worry about the players, and they have this lavish lifestyle, but it's really not easy being them. So yeah, we are harsh in our criticism also, but there are so many layers to it, and yeah, it's
frustrating. It's sad, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's Indian cricket, isn't it? Right, we'll take another short break.
Yeah.
And then off the back of that, Ravi Jadeja, what the hell's going on?
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So, Ravindra Jadeja, politician. What's happening? I mean, it's look. For those who don't know, and I can't imagine there's many that don't know. His wife is campaigning for the BJP party in Jamnagar in Gujarat, his home city, of course. And every social media post, and he doesn't really. I mean, he went through a phase where he was posting a lot, just pictures of himself and all that kind of stuff. And then he sort of toned that down a little bit. Every now and again, you get like a photo shoot with him posing with his horses or in some new clothes or whatever it might be on his farm in Jamnagar or just outside, which is fine. So, but he's not been as active on social media, I wouldn't have thought, of late, until his wife started this campaign. And now everything is all just about her, about him meeting Narendra Modi the other day, just anything to do with that election in Jamnagar. I'm not even sure what kind of election it is. She campaigned to be an MP or
it's the chief minister. Yeah, it's the chief minister election, and she's campaigning for be the MP.
So the MP for Jamnagar potentially. Look, it's fine to support your wife, and you have to do that, obviously, as a married couple. He's copping a lot of slack, though, copping a lot of stick, rather, I should say, on social media for not just his views, because a lot of people don't support the BJP, of course, and they're currently in government, and people don't like them, obviously, and others love them. So it's kind of like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it. But should he be doing this much when supposedly he's injured? He's nowhere to be seen at the NCA in Bangalore, where he should be for his rehab. We haven't got any time frame on his injury and when he'll be back. He's not going to Bangladesh. Obviously, he's been injured for a while, missed the T20 World Cup. Should he be doing this? Is this rubbing Indian fans up the wrong way?
More than that, it's a knee injury. See, first we need to see it's a knee injury. Knee injury needs to be healed. It's not a hand injury where you can and he's been campaigning on top of buses and walking miles and all that. It's a knee injury. It needs rest. I have knee pain. I'm an old person basically. I have knee pain, and I know that if I walk too much, if I climb the stairs or whatever, it's going to aggravate. It's a knee injury. We need to remember that. He's a contracted player for the BCCI. The BCCI pays him money, and his first priority should be representing India. That's how it is. My employers, whoever they are, that is going to be my first priority. I'm going to ensure my health is fine and everything takes the back seat. There are reports that the BCCI is equal to the BJP, which is true because Jai Shah is running everything and his father is the head of the Home Minister of India. So there are those talks. And what's really interesting, I don't know if you saw, there was this poster or something of his wife where she is petitioning that, with all her, I'm going to do this and all that. And there's a picture of Jadeja there, not his wife, Jadeja there wearing the Indian jersey. So should you be doing that, considering that in the Indian team itself, there are a lot of people of different religions and different, castes and everything, and they might not support what you are doing. You can do it. You can have your own personal beliefs, but just understand the mindset of someone like a Siraj or someone like a Shami or someone like an Umran Malik. If you are going to be playing with them, and on the other hand, you're campaigning for a party which has propagated hate openly for a minority. I know I'm being very vocal and I shouldn't go into this domain and all that, and I have received a lot of flack for it. But there have been I got 3 or 4 DMs about it that you should talk about it, and I was like, why? First I was like, no, let it be. Why to go into that terrain? But then I'm like, why shouldn't I talk about it? Because he is, after all, a current Indian cricketer, and his main goal should be playing for India, getting well on time, and ensuring that the team unity is strong as ever whenever he takes a field, and no player feels uncomfortable around him. So uh, that's all I have to say. And I don't know if you believe with what I have said or don't, but my views on this are very strong. And there were a few tweets which I said against Jadeja, but I deleted them because I'm going to get a lot of trolls for it. At least on this podcast, there, whoever listens to it, I hope you understand. If you don't, then that's fine with me, because
look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and there's no doubt that the BJP has got great support not only in Gujarat but across India. They're in government. Of course, people vote for them, people support them. But even, I think, BJP supporters, and there's quite a few of those in England, by the way, the British Indian community in England and in the UK. There's a, you saw Narendra Modi come to Wembley a few years ago, and I was there reporting on that for BBC News at the time. And I mean, it's like Wembley Stadium sold out with all these old masses and stuff in their saris come to support Narendra Modi. So he's got great support, and his party has got great support around the world. And, so that, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but there are those who don't support him. And this is politics. And should a current Indian cricketer be this, obviously support your wife, maybe put out a tweet or two at the start to say, I'm proud of her, whatever. But even she should be telling you, it sits uncomfortably with me just seeing all this stuff. coming off his social media. He's a current India player. Shouldn't really be putting an Indian shirt picture on his on his wife's posters,
because that's like,
because that's almost saying that the Indian cricket team endorses your wife and this party, which that should never happen. I mean, there's a similar situation, just before we sign up, there's a similar situation at the Football World Cup at the moment where the Brazil national team there's been a lot going on in Brazil recently with elections and stuff, and Neymar Jr., who's the biggest star in Brazil at the moment, has been for a number of years, one of the biggest stars in world football. He was heavily campaigning for the right-wing former president who is no longer in power. And there are quite a few players within the squad, the Brazil squad, who haven't been quite as vocal, but I think who, are sort of leaning towards that way. And usually, Neymar, he's the biggest star. People want to follow what he's doing, and even if they're colleagues of his. And then there's Richarlison, who's their top scorer at the World Cup, scored a couple in their first game. He's been on fire for them in recent times, and he's been getting a lot of praise now from a lot of the Brazil fans because he hasn't sort of bowed into that. This is what the team culture is. He's very left wing, and but it can create problems within the camp, is all I'm saying. So you don't want that to become an issue then as well, because Brazil at the moment are holding it together, but apparently there's a lot of tensions within that Brazil camp. They're at a World Cup. They don't need these distractions. They just need to play football and try and win the World Cup. And it's the same with India. Do you want these things creeping into that dressing room then? Yeah, Indian cricketers might be vocal about, we wish our Prime Minister a happy birthday and all this kind of stuff. A lot of them do it because they feel they have to. It's the right thing to do. Everyone else is doing it. We'll just do it. It's only a message. But then campaigning for the party is a very different thing. And yes, support your wife, but draw the line there. And once that's done, once you've shown your support to your wife, then just concentrate on healing your injury and playing cricket again.
Just one thing, his sister is with the Congress party, so
Wow.
Can you imagine how that works?
Yeah, well, I can't actually. Yeah, it must be quite tense in the Jadeja family as a result of that. But look, we've got no problem with people, campaigning for one party or another. But when it's a current Indian cricketer, you've got to be careful about those things. You wouldn't, for example, see Harry Kane or even Joe Root or Ben Stokes or England rugby captain or anyone like that campaigning for Rishi Sunak or Boris Johnson, would you? So on the same hand, why should an Indian sports star be campaigning? I know it's his wife, but ultimately he's campaigning for the party, and that's the BJP, and that's Narendra Modi. So there you go. Anyway, right, enough on politics, and hopefully that's enough from Jadeja on politics as well before too long. Right, thank you for joining us this week. Remember to download the 99.94 app. If you can follow all our latest stuff on there. Remember to subscribe and rate us via your podcast provider. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube and leave us some feedback on there. Comment on what you'd like us to talk about next if you feel. But thanks for joining us this time, and see you next time.